So you have a Z06 or pretty much any C5 or Corvette in general, and you need to get it registered, but you need to pass DEQ or Smog, some kind of emissions test, depending on what state you're in. Being here in Oregon, I have to pass the DEQ. So as you can see, I have tried a few times here to get it to pass. I had a failed code because I had an air leak or a vacuum leak in my system. Got that fixed. There's a video on my channel talking about that as well. But got that cleared. I had then reset the code with my little handheld scanner here. Little did I know, that resets your drive cycles, puts them all in the unready state. And then I had to learn about drive cycles. I thought DMV just said, oh, just go drive it. You know, they give this little blurb here about driving it. Yeah, that doesn't help. There's some very specific things about Corvettes and other vehicles that you have to do to get it to pass those, or get your system, or get your car in the right kind of scenario so that it runs these tests, these internal tests, these cycles, and it puts it into the ready state. And as long as you have no problems with the car, your car will put itself into the ready state. Then you can drive it to the DEQ or the Smog place or wherever you need to get your car inspected, and they will pass you. Now, I was lucky enough today to go there, and you can see it pass all the passes there. And yes, you will notice that one of them here says unready, and I will explain that here in a minute. Most states allow you to go in, like Oregon, you can, if you're 2001 or newer, you can go in and it will pass even if one of them is not ready. In my case, it was the O2 heater. So the way you kind of monitor for this is pretty simple. If you have a scanner that is the best, because you plug your ODB2 scanner in my case, I have an Actron, and it is great. Come on, sense that. So you go in and do your vehicle diagnostics, and a lot of scanners have this drive cycle monitor that you can go into. Now you notice that just like my report said there, one of them's not ready. Now if the rest of them were not ready, they'd be listed here. So if I were to go and check in here under IM monitors, it's going to communicate, and you can see there that those are all good to go. I do not have the heater catalyst, my evap and AC I don't have, and they're all good, you know, except for oxygen sensor heater, which is fine because Oregon and even California, I believe, is 2001 or newer. You can have one of those not reporting or unready and still pass. In my case, it worked. They weren't ready and I passed. So the way you do the drive cycle, that I found a lot of information on, and not all the information was correct. Key points that I found to get my Z06 to pass was I needed to do at least 3 cold starts. Cold starts being the vehicle needs to sit for 8 hours and cool. These Corvettes are hot. They like to run hot and they stay hot. So what I did is I park it at night. I put a 20-inch box fan with the thing open, blowing up, and then another box fan in the front blowing forwards. So, and I would leave my shop open at night, or until pretty late at night, letting the shop cool down. So that way in the morning, I can take all the fans off and start the car. Now when you start the car, do not put the key in and just let it sit there. You gotta put the key in and immediately start it. So you put the key in and immediately start it, immediately turn on your air conditioner and your rear defroster. Now, Z06 doesn't have a rear defroster, but it does have the little grid heater on the back window, so I turn that on. So I turn the heater on, I turn that rear heater on, turn my air conditioner on, turn the radio on. I parked in my shop so my lights are on, like they're on now. And as much electrical load as you can. You do not touch anything, just start it, turn all that stuff on, and let it sit for 3 or so minutes, or 3 or more minutes. And you gotta make sure that the ambient temperature is like less than 93 or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and that your car's coolant temperature is within like 11 degrees of that. So that was something, you know, by letting it sit 8 hours, it allowed me to do that. So after you let it sit that long, then you go for a drive. You want to get the car up to So you let it idle, you get the car up to like 55. You only want to use about a half throttle to get there. You get up to about 55. You stay there for about 5 minutes, and then you need to let off the accelerator. Don't touch the brakes. Don't touch the clutch. Don't touch anything. Just let off the accelerator and let it coast down to something less than 20 miles an hour. Now, that's very difficult to do in traffic. So what I found to work for me is I went out after rush hour, got on the highway, drove till I hit about the 5-minute mark, doing 55. Another thing that's important is a lot of people say you cannot use the cruise control. I was using the cruise control. I'd set it exactly at 55 or 56. I would drive for about 5 minutes, get close to an off-ramp where there weren't a lot of cars around me, and I would just start to take the off-ramp and let my foot off the gas, and I'd have it in 4th or 5th gear and just let it coast down and below 20 miles an hour. You know, it's a manual, it'll lug itself, so basically it wouldn't go below than like 10 miles an hour because it would just kind of drive itself. But I'd get down to that low, and then I'd take it out of gear, and if I could, just let it coast to 0 if possible. Then I would stop, let it idle for a minute, about a minute, just sitting there if no one's around. If there was someone around, then I would just immediately get back onto the highway, go back to 55 miles an hour using, at the second time I would accelerate, I would use about 3/4 throttle, get back up to 55 miles an hour, drive for another 5-10 minutes, do that again, find an off-ramp, cruise to 0, don't touch anything, stop, let it idle, get back on the highway, do it again. That was able to clear my O2, that process. By doing that process, I was able to finish my catalyst and catalyst heat, or what is this? My catalyst, my catalyst and my O2 sensor and my second air, all clear doing that. The only things that I had left was my evap and my O2 heater. So evap, that is all about the cold starts, apparently. At least that's what I found. I had just that and this one left. So I left the car yet again. This is the 3rd time I did a cold start. I let it get as cold as I possibly could in the nighttime temperatures that allowed, with fans on everything. And then I started it, you know, immediately put the key in and start it, turn on the air conditioner, the rear heater, all the lights and everything as much as I could. Let it sit for 3.5 minutes. And that the night before I read that you're supposed to have between a half and 85% full tank, and I only had 1/4 the entire time because I kept only putting like 3 gallons in it at a time. So I drove to the gas station, turned it off, got fuel up until it was above 3/4 or just below 3/4. Turned the car on, evap went away. And in Oregon, you don't have to, you can have one undone. So I drove the DEQ and she passed. But I've heard that the O2 heater one, you just have to keep driving. Some people have reported like driving for 10 to 15 minutes at speed. But if you plug in your scanner and watch that while you drive, then it should pass. So anyway, that's what I learned. If you have questions, drop them down in the box below and I'll get back to you. Like as you can see, I've got lots of reports. I've done this a lot. I've read pretty much every freaking comment, post, and forum about drive cycles. And I even talked to the DEQ. The guy there was like, yeah, don't listen to what Chevy says and do this other thing, which is basically what I was doing, letting it do the cold and then driving it. And yeah, you should be able to get this thing to clear in like 30-40 minutes of driving on the highway, and then like 2 or 3 nights of cold starts, and you should be good. Anyway, hope that helps. I'll be posting a lot more about this car and all the various stuff. Like I said, I have other videos about what I did to get it to pass, or finding my air leak and everything up in there and getting that cleared. So see you on the next one, and it's time to get back to work. See you.